What's going on, everyone? Today we have the meta snapshot for patch 14.6. I learned recently that it is going to be TFT's 6th birthday, which means that I've been almost doing this for 6 years. I think I'm one of the only players who have been doing this from pretty much the very beginning. So if you've been watching for a while, I'm glad you've enjoyed this, but if you are new, this is probably the longest running player run tier list out there. But let's get to TFT. Starting in the S tier for this patch, I think Exotech's by far the best comp. You don't need any legendaries for this comp, which makes it so easy to hit and so consistent and so strong that I think it pushes it above every other comp. If you look at some of the other good comps, like they require some random legendary in order to be good, they require this, they require that, but for Exotech, like as long as you have an Exotech item that's usable on Zeri, namely Pulse Stabilizer and Flux Capacitor, you don't need to do anything else. So you just need to hit 2 4-cost units, and that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, we've been trying to do that in the whole history of TFT, hit 2 4-cost units when you want it, but a lot of times when you do that, you're like, I still need the legendary after. But with Exotech, you're chilling with the 4-cost, so it's very, very good comp, by far the best and the most consistent. You could probably one-trick it, assuming your Exotech items are not complete garbage. Next comp up we have is Strategist AMP, a very strong comp, same as Exotech, but you need a legendary, or at least it helps a ton. So that's why I think it's a little bit lower right now, but still very strong comp. I mean, I have it as second best out there. After that, Misfortune, still very good after the Dynamo changes. Kogmaw Reroll, very solid comp, very easy to play. And then we have Graves, so like 2 reroll comps if you want like the reroll angle. It is a bit situational though, so for Kogmaw, it's pretty simple, but for Graves, you need Graves early and some items for him. I'll cover each and every one of these comps in depth after the summary on how to play them and what like units are in there and such as something like this. But next comp up we have is Vanguard Marksman Aphelios, another solid 4-cost comp out there if you're going the attack damage path, but maybe don't have a lot of Exotech units. Maybe Exotech is contested. Maybe Exotech items were not in your favor that game. You could definitely go for the Vanguard Marksman Aphelios. Anima Squad, another good option if you're more focused on Xayah, or if you have like Anima Squad emblems, or emblems in general. BoomBot, very solid, another emblem comp. Shaco Reroll, there's a very specific build of Shaco Reroll that I think is very good. It's only if you get plus range on Shaco. It's pretty mediocre otherwise, but if you get plus range on it, it could be S tier. Cypher, still a very decent cash out comp. You could play anything with it, so you don't necessarily have to play the Cypher build. I'm just listing it out here because lose streak Cypher is still viable. Vex took a step down, but still okay. Veigar Techie Reroll, very nice. Techie Reroll in general with Seraphine and with Bruisers, pretty solid too. And then AMP Naafiri Reroll, dropped down a little bit. Still playable, but most of the AMP players are playing it in the 4-cost version with Strategist AMP with sometimes a Yuumi 3-star, sometimes not. And then Street Demon rounds out the A tier. The B tiers are definitely playable still. Like we have Zeri Bastion, people like playing it with a lot of rapid fire. We have Morgana Bastion, Nitro, Twist of Fate, things like that. They are all playable. I just recommend sticking with the S and A tiers because there are a lot of comps in there. Sometimes when the list is short, like if I have maybe 7 comps in the S and A tier, then I'm like, all right, drop down to the B tiers. But right now, there's a lot in the S and the A's, so I would probably ignore the B tier for now. But let's get into how to build each and every one of these comps. Let's start off with Exotech. So first off, we have like the standard version over here. So Zeri, very powerful stuff with the Rageblade. Rageblade got changed in the last patch, but it's still very good on her and a must build. And then Kraken Slayer is extremely powerful on Zeri. After that, either Pulse Stabilizer or Flux Capacitor work on her. Literally could be any of the 2. But I do want to show you the build with it, so I don't want to put like both of them on Zeri, if you get my drift. For secondary carries, it really depends on what you have. If you have a lot of ability power items, you could drop them onto your Varus. If you have a lot of attack damage items, you could drop them onto Jhin. So let me show you what a possible build could look like for your secondary carry. So obviously, Zeri is going to be your main person, and then if you have something like Hollow Bow maybe, then you want to go more towards Varus. It's one of his best items, and obviously if you have a bunch of ability power, it's nice. What I like to do is build a Shojin. I feel like Shojin works on both Varus and Jhin, so it's quite easy to flex between the 2. If you have something like Hyper Fangs, I would prefer a little bit on Varus, but both of them can use it. But you definitely do want to have a secondary carry because with Exotech, you get a bunch of free items. You get 3 free items from the Exotech trait. So there's a lot to go around, and you definitely want to be itemizing at least 2 different people dealing damage. Sometimes you could get to 3. Like if you get Binary Airdrop, one of the augments out there, like yeah, you could itemize 3 different carries and 2 different tanks. But for most games, it's going to be like 2 carries and like 1.5 tanks. So speaking of tanks, Sejuani is going to be the main tank. You want her to have any of the random Exotech tank items. You don't really discriminate between any of them. you just kind of use what you get, because you normally get 2 tank 1 damage or 2 damage 1 tank items for Exotechs. And yeah, you just want to use what you get. So it could be Cyber Coil, it could be Corrupted Chassis, it could be Repulsor Lantern. Any of these, who cares? Just drop them on your tank. And then ideally after that, you get some mana items for Sejuani. So if you type in like tier over here under all items, you see the 2 tank items like Protector's Vow and Spirit Visage is pretty good, and also Adaptive Helm. Like all 3 of those are really nice. Protector's Vow probably gonna be the best one, because you just really want her to cast as early as possible because she has a giant AoE stun. And then get some utility items on like your Mordekaiser. You could put like Sunfire Cape plus Even Shroud on him if you're going like all attack damage. If you're doing some magic damage with Varus, you could put like an Ionic Spark on him. But just make sure you have some form of armor penetration and some anti-heal. Sometimes you could do it with Sunfire Cape, sometimes you do it with a Morello or a red buff. Varus can also hold Morello and red buff, by the way. You could like do this as well. And make sure you get a lot of items onto your actual Exotech units, because for each item they have, they get health and some attack speed, so it's very important to put as many items on them as you can. But very strong comp here. Just do a standard fast 8 comp. So level up to level 8 sometime during the early parts of stage 4. Sometimes you could do it earlier if you get like a ton of gold at the beginning, or if you get like a really big econ augment. But most people, they hit it around like stage 4-1, 4-2. Latest I would say is 4-3, just because it's a bit contested right now, because I think it's the best comp. Because it's so easy to hit, so consistent. You don't need any legendaries. Like I know I have Aurora there, but honestly, you don't even need her. She's pretty optional. Like the main core of the comp is just the Exotech units plus a Kindred. Kindred's good because it gives you both Marksman and Rapid Fire, depending on who you're carrying. If you're obviously doing Zeri and Jhin, it makes a ton of sense. But incredibly strong comp, super easy to play, super easy to hit. So I highly, highly recommend that to everyone. Next comp up we have is Strategist Flex. Very strong comp, but a little bit more difficult to kind of play. But it's still a very solid 4-cost comp. As we were talking about before with like the whole, oh, do you need legendaries or not? Like what's the best comp? Like Strategist Flex is a very strong comp. It probably has a much higher ceiling than the Exotech comp, but you need to hit Samira. I mean, you don't need to, but it helps a lot to hit Samira because the 5 AMP power spike is so big that it's really what pushes a comp into the stratosphere, you know? It's obviously still playable without Samira, but you can think of it as kind of like a hit or miss comp. Like if Exotech is averaging like a 4.0, you could say that Strategist Flex, you might average like a 3 or a 2.5 with Samira, and then you might average like a 5 without it, you know? If only there was a way to check how good the Strategist AMP comp does with or without Samira. Good news, there is a way to do it. So what you can do is go to the TFT Data Explorer. I just clicked like the link over here, and then you can type in whatever trait you want. So we're focused more on Samira, and if you use Samira with 5 AMP, you'll notice that it averages pretty well, like 3.88. Very good data, very good stuff. Like we could change the ranks to whatever you want. Most people use like Diamond or Master Plus, but you could also use whatever rating you are. If you are in Gold, just like uncheck everything and then go to Gold, right? Loads pretty fast actually. But in this example, I'm gonna do Diamond Plus, and pretty much with Samira, like 3.95, very solid stuff. But what happens if you don't have Samira? Well, first of all, you'll get 0 games because you cannot get 5 AMP without Samira. So we'll change this to 4 or 5 AMP, but exclude Samira, and you'll notice that you average like a 6.59. So that's kind of what I'm saying when I'm talking about like, what comps need legendaries, what don't. Like if you look at this comp, like you just don't need any legendaries to hit most of the power, but for this one, you definitely do, and for every comp that has a legendary. So it's very important stuff. That means you need a lot of gold whenever you play this, and of course the ceiling is higher. Obviously a board full of 2-star legendary units is gonna beat a lot of boards without 2-star legendary units, so when you play this, make sure you actually have the gold to hit everything. You're able to reach level 9, or you play around something like Yuumi 3-star. That's something that's pretty popular right now. They play this build, they go for Yuumi 3, and they put like blue buff, like pretty much all your Annie items go on her. You do blue buff, jeweled gauntlet, and things like that. And you kind of have multiple options for carries. But pretty much this is an expensive comp, but if you hit it, yeah, you're probably gonna get first place a bunch of times. But that's kind of why I rate the Exotech comp higher than this Strategist comp, even though both are very, very good, and you're probably gonna be playing them in most of your games. Like honestly, like out of the top comps right now, you're gonna play the top 3 comps maybe in like 50% of your games in most cases. They're that good, and like they don't require like any situational stuff really. I mean, obviously they require like some things, but they don't require anything extreme like a specific augment, specific emblem, or things like that. Next build up we have is Misfortune Flex. Misfortune has a couple of different builds out there. There's a Dynamo build and the Exotech build. Both are valid. Like, one uses Zeri, so if you have a Rage Blade, you could go for the Zeri build. The Dynamo one, it's played around with at least 3-star. Very strong comp, very solid. Similar to the Strategist comp is that sometimes you can get put into 5-cost jail, is what some people call it, and that means you don't have like your 5-cost unit that's built around your trait, namely Aurora here. But the good news about this comp is that there are quite a few versions you can play, so you can play around a bunch of different units. So we have like the standard or like the budget version here where we play around syndicates, but honestly, you don't really need syndicates when you play this build. It's nice to get if you get like a Braum 3 with the Elise 3 because you're rolling for them at the same time. But you can easily exchange this for a bunch of legendaries or like some Divinicorps. So for example, you could take away Braum and Darius and even Leona and then just play a bunch of legendaries instead. Like Garen and Zac are very popular right now. A lot of people are kind of splashing them into a lot of different builds that don't really need very specific units, including this one. Those are called more like the horizontal builds where you don't need to go that deep into a trait. Like, yeah, I know you go 4 out of 4 Dynamo, right? But compare this to Exotech where you have to go like 7 deep into Exotech, or like Anima Squad, you need to go 7 deep into it. It's kind of hard to fit some of those like flex units in a lot of cases, but in some comps where their max trait is like a 3 or a 4, you definitely can splash in a lot of these random legendary units, which makes the comp a lot stronger. But you could play these two. You could also play Gragas. Gragas is pretty good. It gives you Divinicorp with the Kabuko. And with this type of build, you do get a lot of free frontline and get access to a lot of the stronger units to get a much higher cap. So a couple of different ways to play this. Like, yeah, the reroll version is much easier to play, but if you have a ton of gold, you could reach level 9. You could skip the Braum 3, go straight into legendaries, and then 2-star them that way. But pretty much you want to be focused on like your Misfortune. A lot of people, they roll at level 8 because at level 8, you have a pretty good chance of hitting Misfortune and Leona to stabilize, and then you also have a pretty good chance of hitting Elise 3-star at level 8 because the odds for 3-cost units are just pretty decent there. It's better at level 7 to reroll for 3-cost units, but at level 8, you're able to fit in more units, and you could also hit 4 costs, which gives you access to Misfortune. For items like Infinity Edge and Stride Breaker is what it's called now, are definitely the 2 best items on her. Third item, I don't think it really matters that much, just get any damage item onto her. For Elise, you definitely need the blue buff and then 2 AP items. And then for the tanks, just put whatever generic tank items you get on them. And then for Aurora, definitely put a Morello on her. So don't build a Sunfire Cape when you play Dynamos because Aurora is the best holder for red buff and Morello. So in order to get anti-heal, it's best to put it on her. Like obviously in the early game, if you have to build a Sunfire Cape because you can't build any other items, like yeah, just build it, it's okay. But if you can help it, try not to, you know? But this is a very strong comp, definitely in the top 3. Like there's definitely a trifecta right now. For the reroll comps, these are comps that are gonna be a little bit more situational. We're gonna start off with Vanguard Kogmaw. So Kogmaw got buffed a bunch in the recent patches, so he's very, very good. And you want to just build Kraken Slayer and Rageblade on him. Like, people have been doing double Kraken Slayer or Kraken's Fury, I forget the exact name, and it's just super, super solid. Like, that's the item you build out of bow and Negatron Cloak. But if you can't get 2 of them, because I know you need a lot of bows, you can build something like a Rageblade, Kraken's Fury, and a Hextech Gunblade. So a nice little substitution there in case you don't have everything. For the tanks, it's a little tricky though. So normally this is a 1-cost reroll comp, so you just want to go for Kogmaw 3-star and Vi 3-star. Sometimes Silas if you get him for free, sometimes Kindred if you get her for free. But in this build, it can get a little more complicated because you could go for Skarner 3-star tank as well. So what you want to do when playing this, and I have this in the instructions down here, in case you miss anything I say, or you want like readable notes that you can refer to, maybe you're in like a Discord call and you can't listen to my video and also talk to someone else, right? Head on over to the website bunnymuffins.lol/meta where you can find access to all these guides for free. They're pretty much at your fingertips. You could alt tab to it, put it on your 10th monitor or whatever you want to do, you know? I don't know how you fly, but sometime during this game, you need to decide who your main tank is going to be. Sometimes when you roll for Kogmaw 3-star, which you do with like the regular 1-cost reroll, where you econ in the early game, roll at level 4 on 3-1 until 32 gold, econ back up, then slow roll at level 5, and then roll for everything on stage 4-1 until you hit Kogmaw. Sometimes you hit Vi 3-star during that time and you hit like no Skarners. In that case, you want to go for Vi 3-star as your main tank. In cases where like maybe you don't get a lot of Vi's and you see a lot of Skarners, what you want to do instead is hit your Kogmaw 3, then level up to level 6, and then slow roll for Skarner 3-star. That way, he's going to be your main tank, and it's going to be a little bit stronger. It's just a bit more expensive, right? Of course, I have not forgotten the third scenario. What happens if you get a lot of Vi's and a lot of Skarners? Well, in that case, you still 3-star Vi, use her as your main tank in the early game, and then once you get 3-star Skarner, transfer the items over onto Skarner in the later parts of the game. So those are pretty much all 3 scenarios, one where you get Vi's and no Skarners, one where you get Skarners and no Vi's, and then one where you get both of them. There is also the 4th scenario of what if you get neither of them, because in TFT, you need a hit. So how do you avoid that situation where you can't get any of them? Well, you could get econ augments. So stuff like Starry Knight's pretty good. You could also be uncontested if you take something like No Scout, No Pivot, which is really good on 1-cost reroll comps because you play them from the very start of the game. People are not going to contest you if they have a brain, right? I'm not saying that they do, but if they have one, they wouldn't. And that's kind of how you avoid those scenarios where you don't hit anything at all, or at least reduce them to maybe like 1 out of 20 games instead of 10 out of 20 games, you know? So that's kind of like the way to choose who your main tank is. And I think that's like the only tricky part about this comp, because it's a 1-cost reroll build. It's very easy to do. You literally just follow what I wrote down here and you're not going to mess it up in like 99% of cases. Next build up we have is Golden Ox Reroll. A lot of people were playing like the Graves Reroll last patch, and it is a very solid comp. It's just a bit situational. So if you get it, you can just win the game outright, like no questions asked. Because Golden Ox, when you get a kill, you potentially get a gold drop. And because of that, you can just snowball the game very, very heavily, because the more gold you spend as a Golden Ox player, the more buff you get out of your trade. So it snowballs very, very quickly. But with that in mind, it makes this comp play very differently from most other reroll comps. So reroll comps of the past, you normally play them when you lose streak in the early game and you built a lot of economy with a lot of interest, with a lot of streak gold, and then you roll down, hit your comp on stage 3. When you stabilize, let's say you're playing Rengar, you get like a 2-star Rengar and 2-star someone else, 2-star Jinx, and then you just steamroll people on stage 3, steamroll the people who didn't hit in the early parts of stage 4, and then lose a little bit until you hit your 3 stars, and then you steamroll everyone again in stage 5. That's how most reroll comps work. But for a Golden Ox reroll, you need to win in the early game because you need to get a lot of kills. Or I shouldn't say you need to win, but you need to at least kill a lot of units, because you need to be getting all your Golden Ox stacks and also getting the gold drops. So the only way to play Golden Ox reroll is to 1, get a Graves early, 2, 2-star him early, and 3, have items for him. You need to meet those 3 situations. So the only time I would actually play Golden Ox reroll is, let's say I have a Graves 1-star. That's not enough for me to go for it unless I have 2 items for him. So if you get the portal or encounter, whatever they call it nowadays, where you get a bunch of item anvils or a bunch of component anvils, those are the games where you could build a lot of items for your Graves right away. So in those cases, a Graves 1-star can carry and can get a lot of kills. For other cases, you want to wait till you have a Graves 2-star. I know you don't always get that at the start of the game. It's like super hard to do that. But if you have like 2 copies of Graves early on stage 2-1, then you're like, all right, I have an item for him. I have 2 copies. I should hit the 3rd copy to get 2-star Graves pretty soon. Then yeah, go for it. Take it off Carousel, do whatever you need to do, and then steamroll people after that. But those are kind of the 2 scenarios where I would play this comp, and when you do it that way, it's really, really, really powerful. Of course, you could be a little more liberal in your times to play this, but if you're just like a regular flex player, that's what I recommend. If you're like a hard forcer, like yeah, you could play this comp in many more situations, but you're gonna have to really know what you're doing in order to get the most benefit from it. Another thing to keep in mind when playing this is managing your Golden Ox stack. So pretty much you want to still play this as a reroll comp. You want to slow roll at level 6 on stage 3-2, or starting from stage 3-2 until you hit Graves 3. But you want to pay attention to your Golden Ox stacks. So pretty much what that means is roll until you hit your Golden Ox threshold for that turn, because you can't get any more, and then save your gold for the turn after that. Make sure you do that every single turn. And once the threshold gets too big, you can skip a turn. So I forget the exact thresholds. I think one of them's like 48 gold or something like that. Like some turns you can't spend 48 gold, right? So what you do instead is wait a turn, don't spend anything that round, and then the turn after that, try to get to the threshold or however long it takes. So always keep that in mind. Don't waste your rolls if you're not getting to the threshold that turn, because you just lose out on a lot of power over time. But ideally, if you get a bunch of gold drops, it's pretty easy to hit most of the thresholds in the early game. So it's not really something to worry about until the later parts of the game. But yeah, pretty much For augments, golden ox emblems are really good to get to 6 golden ox. Like, you definitely want that if you can, if you hit a Viego, for example, and an emblem. But apart from that, for augments, just go for like a bunch of the money augments because it really helps you out in getting your power. But other stuff you could do with this comp is go for Jarvan 3-star if you can, if you get a lot of Jarvans as you're re-rolling for Graves. If not, go for Aphelios secondary carry. You still have to put tank items on your Jarvan, but he'll just be 2-star because Jarvan is like decently contested, I would say. A couple of Vanguard players out there, and if anyone plays Slayers, they take him too. But if you are able to get him 3-star, like, definitely go for it because it is very worth it. And also, re-rolling is much easier to hit the golden ox thresholds with because reroll gold counts as double versus leveling. So it's much easier to reroll whenever you play this because of the way it kind of works out like that. Next build up we have is Aphelios, Marksman, Vanguard. And this comp hasn't really changed too much. It's just a 4 Vanguard, 4 Marksman comp, very front to backy. If you're going attack damage, this is going to be your secondary option. Like, again, I recommend going for the Exotech build up here if you have a Rage Blade. And if you have like no Rage Blade, go for the Misfortune build. But like, if you don't have that, or if you get like a ton of attack damage items, then Aphelios, Marksman, Vanguard is going to be the game for you. Very straightforward comp though. You just level up, use one of the backline item holders like the 1 or 2 costs such as Kindred, Jhin, Kogmaw, things like that, and then slowly pivot into the 4 Marksman, 4 Vanguard comp. It's just like a decent comp if you get a lot of items because like you need to itemize both Xayah and Aphelios, 3 items and a 3-item tank. So it is pretty item heavy. So if you get one of those games where you get a bunch of item augments, or you get like super perfect swords or something like that, like lots of swords and bows on your backline, then yeah, go for this comp. If not, there are probably better things to go for. But it's pretty simple. Just go for the 4 costs. You don't really need the legendaries until later in the game. You play this board, then in the late game, you throw in like the Zacs and the Garens and things like that, and it becomes much stronger. So lots of things you can kind of work around with, and just a very decent comp overall. Like, again, Garen is just played in so many different comps right now. Yeah, he's really good, especially if you get the Vanguard mod on him, because yeah, you just get another tank that's really powerful. Next build up we have is Anima Squad. So Anima Squad, I would only play this if you get the Anima Squad emblem. Apart from that, it's like they're just better things to go for. Like, if you have a bunch of Xayah items, why wouldn't you play Marksman, Vanguard, or Misfortune? You know, like, they pretty much use the same items, and you're not forced into only playing Anima Squad units, you know? They pretty much use the same core with Leona and Xayah as well. So you could mix and match the two, but with Anima Squad, I really prefer only playing this if I get an emblem, because like, there are a lot of bad Anima Squad units. Like, what's Alawi and Vayne really doing in this comp, right? Like, they're not doing that much. Like, you could even throw Yuumi in there, right? Like, the 2 and 3 cost units just aren't that good, and when you get an emblem, it's as if you just have an extra unit slots to put something good in. So that's why I really only like playing vertical comps with an emblem. Exception is made for the Exotech comp, because you get so many Exotech items and then you just throw items on them and then they become good, right? Of course, the emblem still helps, but it's not absolutely necessary. For the Anima Squad choices right now, most people are doing Uwu Blasters, Animimes, and the Gatling Gun. They pretty much go all the attack damage ones because you usually build Last Whisper or Even Shroud in this comp. So that's what most people are doing. Like, pretty much just take the attack damage one in most cases, and you'll be fine. But I wouldn't say like the differences between the different Anima Squads really matter that much, because you get what you get, and if you don't hit 2-star of whatever champion you're trying to carry, like, yeah, you're not going to do well anyways. It doesn't matter what Anima Squad thing you picked, right? So focus more on hitting the units, but if you're trying to pick the best Anima Squad mod or augment, whatever you want to call it, just take the attack damage one and you'll be good to go. Next build up we have is going to be BoomBots. BoomBots are pretty solid, but only with an emblem. And by the way, like, starting from here, this is where the comps kind of fall off a little bit. Like, A tier I always put as like very strong or like playable if you get the right spot. S tiers are kind of the things you could just like hard force or want to hard force every single game. But a lot of the A tier comps, it really depends, because like if you get the emblem on them, like they're S- or something like that, you know? But if you don't have the emblem, like they're pretty useless. Like BoomBots is a great example of that. If you have BoomBot emblem, like probably at an S-, maybe even S comp. But because it's so hard to get one specific emblem, like I can't just put it in the S tier, you know? So if anyone has suggestions on how to better showcase that, let me know. Some comps are like that, including BoomBots. But nothing too much has really changed about this comp. You just want to get BoomBot emblem, play around Cho'Gath, play around like your Fiddlesticks, Kog'Maw, Skarner in the early game, and then just let the BoomBots do its work. You definitely need magic penetration, so Ionic Spark or Void Staff are going to be great for that. And it's actually like a pretty easy comp to play, because like you just get the emblem, put into your team planner all the BoomBot units. If you want to get the team planner, click the photo link and then click this thing over here, it'll copy the team code to your clipboard, and then you just paste it in, and it makes the comp pretty easy to play. You could do that for all the comps, by the way, but like this comp is like super easy and super powerful. You just need to hit all the units with the BoomBot emblem. So I typically only play this if I have a BoomBot emblem in the early game, and then I just hard force it, and no one really contests you because like they also have to get the specific emblem, and if they do, like that's unlucky. I pretty much never seen anyone contested for this comp. Like I watched a lot of games, like played a bunch of games too. It's very rare that something like this gets contested, but like it's happened before, you know, but like maybe 1 out of 50 games, you know. Obviously this comp is very risky though, because you do need to hit Urgot to get to 6 BoomBot, but it is pretty playable at 4. But do keep in mind as you play this, you probably do need to hit level 9 or roll a lot of gold at level 8 or take Urgot off Carousel. Like I definitely would 1000% take Urgot off Carousel, like in stage 4, if you have the opportunity to, because like he is that important, and if you don't have him, you just can't get to 6 BoomBot. So keep that in mind. Secondary carry is definitely going to be Vex. Vex is going to be good with the blue buff plus the BoomBot emblem, and then any ability power item will do. You could do like Hextech Gunblade, Rabadon's Death Cap, literally anything, but I wouldn't say she's like that important. Like your team just does a lot because they trigger BoomBot often, and as long as 3 of your units like Cho'Gath, Urgot, and Vex have like any semblance of usable items, they'll trigger the BoomBot thing often enough. Next build up we have is going to be Shaco Reroll. You want to play Shaco with the range stuff. It's really good with that, but you just play it with a bunch of Slayers and like Syndicates. And yeah, like if you go to the Explorer, you go to items, and then you go to artifacts. He's pretty decent with like a lot of artifacts, but yeah, pretty much if you get one of these like special weird items on him, he does really, really well. And there's some augment that does it too. I forget the name of it. It's the one where like all your units in the back row get like +3 range. It's called Scoped Weapons. If you ever get that, the game becomes a lot easier because like, yeah, your Shaco just stays super safe, does a lot of damage, and yeah, he just runs through people. But any plus range effect on Shaco is extremely good. You just put Infinity Edge on him. Like Edge of Night's pretty good too. He gets a lot of lifesteal from Slayer, so you don't have to put the Hand of Justice on him, but any combination is fine. But you could also mix it up a bit if you do have range. So like sometimes you don't need the Edge of Night. I've even seen people build Quicksilver and Rageblade on him, as you can see down here. And those builds are typically better in the comps where you get like the plus range, because like he's pretty safe. You don't need any of the other stuff to protect him. But yeah, pretty much there are 2 builds for Shaco. There's a melee version and then there's the range version. But just do 1 cost reroll. You could do Mundo as well, or you could do Jarvan as your tank. And yeah, like level 8, you just add in all the other Slayer units and get to 6 Slayer, Zed secondary carry, GG. I wouldn't really play Vayne though. Like Vayne did get buffed, but she still sucks. Don't play her. I think I have her in the C tier in the meta snapshot. Cypher, we don't really need to go over too much, because like if you get the Cypher cash outs with Draven 3 and Galio 3, like just play them. Play a bunch of like AD items plus Shojin on Draven, bunch of random tank items on Galio. And if you get like a gold or item Cypher cash out, you don't have to play Cypher. You could play literally any of the comps. So just like when you do the cash out, pick one of the A or S tier comps, and yeah, like that's all you need to do with Cypher. Start playing Cypher as early as you can. Like I'd say latest is like stage 2-5 for playing Cypher, and try to lose streak, try to only play the Cypher units so that you raise the chances of losing. And yeah, nothing too complicated there. You just play the game with less health but more resources. Next comp up we have is Exotech Vex. This comp got nerfed a bunch. It's still playable, don't get me wrong. No one's playing Vex that much, which is the good news. Like I don't think any of the comps we looked at had Vex except for the BoomBot comp, which like is a super rare comp. So that means you can play Vex a bunch without it being contested, but like obviously it's a lot weaker. They nerfed Board of Directors, which was one of her best augments. I think they nerfed her as well. I forget the exact things they changed. They nerfed something about the comp though. It might have just been Board of Directors. Regardless, like they're just much better options for blue buff. Like if you're playing blue buff, you might as well play the Yuumi comp with Strategist AMP or play like an Annie. So if you build a blue buff early and you miss on Strategist, you can go into the Exotech Vex. Like that's your backup option. So that's why it's a bit lower down on the tier list. It's like, it's still viable, don't get me wrong. Like if you have to play it, you have to play it, right? Like if it's what you hit, but just know that it is a backup option. And yeah, you'd rather be playing Annie. The 5 Exotech version is better in the mid game, 3 Exotech version better in the late game because you use more legendary units. But Varus is going to be secondary carry, could be 3-star, could be 2-star. 3-star is obviously better if you can afford it. But you pretty much just roll on level 8 until you hit Vex 2 and Sejuani 2. See if you have a lot of copies of Varus. If you do, go for Varus 3-star by slow rolling. If not, level up to level 9. Play a bunch of legendaries like you see here. For Varus, you want like Hyperfangs or Hollowbow. Super strong with those 2 Exotech items. Definitely mandatory if you use him as one of your carries. Next build up we have is Veigar Reroll. I pretty much would only play him with one of the Cyber Boss augments. If not, not really that great, but it's a pretty simple build. Just go for Veigar 3, find a 3-star tank. Most often it's going to be like Poppy or Shyvana or Mordekaiser. And the comp is absolute trash unless you get 4 Cyber Boss. So it's a bit tricky because you need a reroll for Veigar 3-star, and then you also need a Kabuko on top of that. So I really only recommend playing this if and only if you have a lot of gold. So if you have like a really good reroll augment or a lot of gold augments, or take like a leveling augment after you get Veigar. Like Epic, for example, it's mainly like a fast 8 comp, but you could use it for a reroll comp as well because it gives you a bunch of rolls and then it helps you level up after you hit. Those are going to be what you want in this comp because you need 3-star Veigar, absolutely, and then you also need to hit Kabuko. So pretty difficult to do. Like obviously if you see Kabuko off Carousel, take it, and that's pretty much all you need to do. But yeah, I'd probably only play this if I get like a ton of Veigars early, or if I get one of the Cyber Boss augments, because I feel like they're just better things to play with the blue buff, as we talked about before. But if you built a blue buff and then you see a lot of Veigars in the early game, maybe you use them as an item holder, you could consider going for this reroll comp. Next build up we have is going to be Techie Reroll. I did not have this comp updated last week, so it is a pretty interesting build that I've been seeing going around. You go Mundo carry with the new Spirit Visage. I think he's like the best user of that, oddly enough. And then you go for Seraphine 3 as your damage dealer. So pretty simple 1-cost reroll comp. We have the 4 Bruiser, 4 Techie version at level 7, and then you go 6 Techies at level 9. Obviously you want Viego, but oftentimes he's not there, so just use whatever Techies you can get. And then if you have an emblem, you definitely can go for 8 Techie. What are the stats on 8 Techie? Let's check that out right now. We maybe just type in like Seraphine over here and then go to traits and then Techies, or Seraphine 3-star then Techies. And we can see like at 6 Techie, 3.68, 8 Techie, 2. Like, yeah, I mean, if you get the emblem, it's great, right? Like the deep traits are always going to look better in the stats, but I'm surprised it's not like that much better. It's only like slightly better, you know, considering you need the emblem for it and to like hit Viego. But definitely just go deep into Techies. Mundo with the Spirit Visage, obviously going to be really, really great. And yeah, it's just 1-cost reroll, very simple to play. Just do the do not roll or level early on type of strategy, and then on stage 3-1 roll down to 32 gold, etc., all in on stage 4-1. Like you guys know the deal if you've been a long time watcher, but if you are new, there is a leveling guide out there somewhere on the YouTube channel. I think there's also a leveling guide at the very top of this website, bunnymuffins.lol, so definitely check that out if you are new to these terms. I try not to use like weird terms, or like, what's the word for it, like esoteric terms or whatever, but sometimes I forget. So if you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below or in the Discord. Like me or one of the other viewers would definitely be happy enough to answer anything. Doesn't have to be about TFT either, but let's move on into the next comp, which is the Naafiri reroll build. This build definitely took a step down. It's definitely not bad, but it's super situational because you just need like Naafiri really, like I feel like Naafiri falls off, and then when I play it, I'm like, I think I want both Naafiri and Yuumi. Like, I think solo Naafiri might not be enough in a lot of cases. You definitely want both of them. And you also need a very specific Exotech item. You're only going to play 3 Exotech, so that means you only get 1 Exotech item. And Pulse Stabilizer is like tailor-made for Naafiri. Like, it gives the execute effect and it gives you crit on your spell like an Infinity Edge. So if you don't have that, like, you need to build too many other items to make Naafiri work. So without that, I wouldn't even play this comp. So even though this comp is in the A tier, like, you play it very rarely because without Pulse Stabilizer as my Exotech item, like, I don't even consider playing this comp. So you need to get that, you need to get Naafiri's, and you need to get a decent item for it early game so that you don't just like play without any items. So it's a lot of things you need to have. So that's why it's a bit lower on the tier list. When you do hit it, it is pretty powerful, but I do want to supplement it with the Yuumi. And then of course, later on in the super late game, you need the Samira for the 5 AMP bonus because there's no AMP emblem, so you can only get it through getting the champions. So there are a lot of ifs that I just said out loud there, right? So that's why I don't really like this comp that much, but you definitely can make it work. But definitely try to do like a duo carry with this in the mid to late game. By adding in something like Yuumi 3-star. But pretty solid comp. It's pretty much the same build as the other Strategist AMP comps. The only difference is that you add an Exotech because obviously you need it for Naafiri. And yeah, pretty simple comp there. 2 or 3 cost reroll depending on what you're going for. Next build up, we have a Street Demon. Street Demon is going to be a little bit lower in the tier list right now. If we look at all the big traits, like we could go to stats, traits. We are in Master Plus right now. Like, I like doing a check. I like typing in 8. It's only 8 Techie, like pretty solid. Then after that, I type in 7. 7 Syndicate, you need emblems for, so like that one doesn't count, right? Divinicorp, that one kind of also doesn't count. No one really plays that. You can tell by the play rate on the right-hand side here. And then we see Exotech. Like Exotech, we already know super strong. Anima Squad, very solid. You probably only want to play Anima Squad with the emblem, as we discussed earlier. And then after that, we have his Street Demon. Like Street Demon, you probably want to follow the emblem rule as well. But some games you go for an AP start or ability power start, and then you don't get a blue buff. Because right now, the top comps out there for ability power is going to be the blue buff build. So like Strategist AMP, what's the next one? Techies like Vex and Veigar. Like for those 3 builds, you want a blue buff. Shojin is mainly for Street Demon and Techie Reroll for Seraphine, right? But guess what? Both builds just are not high on the priority list right now. So if you can help it, like obviously for ability power, you want to go for a blue buff. But in those games where you just can't get a blue buff, yeah, you could still do Street Demon, and maybe you get a very specific Street Demon augment. Definitely go for that as well. But apart from that, like you don't really need to play the comp too much, but it is still solid if you hit it. Like you're not gonna lose because you play this comp, right? You're not gonna lose like 500 LP because you played this, but it's just not something that you're like gunning for at the start of every game. But again, if you're going for ability power and you can't hit any of the other good stuff, then it's a solid option. That's what a lot of the A tier is for. It's like just options that you can have for your game. And good players know when to move to the worst comps versus just hard forcing the strong comps every single game. Because obviously, like, if we could help it, we'd play like Strategist AMP and hit everything at level 9, right? Like, that'd probably be the best thing to do with this patch. Or get like Cypher cash outs every game, you know? But we can't always do that. So what you have to do instead is go for consistent comps. That's going to be the Exotech right now. And when you can't get that, you flex into the other builds, moving down the tier list in your priority, right? That's pretty much how I try to set this up in most cases, but we pretty much went over all the S and A tier comps. Again, just to summarize, like Exotech is so good because you don't need a legendary to make it work. You just play the build and it's solid on its own. Like it's like when you get a dessert and they're like, oh, do you want it a la mode? That means with ice cream. And it's like, you don't really need it, you know? But for Strategist AMP, you definitely need the ice cream on top, you know? Like, you can't have, like, a lava cake without the ice cream. Meanwhile, if you have, like, a creme brulee, for example, like, Exotech's kind of like a creme brulee. Like, you don't need the ice cream with it. Like, it can stand on its own. But, you know, like, lava cake with the ice cream, probably gonna be a little bit better, you know? But lava cake alone, definitely worse than the creme brulee. So that's kind of how you can kind of look at this. But let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below or in like Discord channel, social media, whatever. I have heard the new set is gonna come out, I think a month from now. Like I think it's sometime late July, so that should be exciting too, right? But until then, let me know what type of videos you guys want to see on this channel. I'll try to make some more. Like I've been a little bit busy lately, so I haven't been making as many videos as I would have liked. So let me know down in the comments what you kind of want to see, and hopefully we can turn it into a reality. But thanks so much for watching. I'll see you all next time.